I'm Sarah Mitchell, 36, a software engineer who built my family's tech consulting firm Mitchell and Associates from a struggling startup into a $50 million powerhouse over 14 years. I coded their first major application, landed contracts with Fortune 500 companies, and revolutionized their entire technology stack. Then my parents decided my younger brother Jake, who thinks Python is a snake and JavaScript is a coffee preference, should be the new chief technology officer. I walked out, taking my client relationships and proprietary code with me. 3 weeks later, they lost their biggest contract worth $8 million when my mother called in tears. I said, "Ask your new CTO." If you've ever been betrayed by those you loved most, drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from. Hit that like and subscribe button if you're ready to hear how I finally stood up for myself after years of manipulation. Let's talk about claiming your worth in tech. Mitchell and Associates occupies 3 floors of a glass tower in downtown Austin, Texas. The sleek offices buzz with the hum of servers and the rapid clicking of keyboards. My grandfather, Robert Mitchell, founded it in 1985 as a small accounting software company. Back then, computers were mysterious boxes that few understood. Grandpa Bob saw the future coming and built a bridge between traditional business and emerging technology. Growing up, I didn't play with Barbies, I played with circuit boards. While other kids were outside, I was in Grandpa Bob's workshop, learning to solder components and understand how electricity flowed through silicon pathways. By age 12, I was building my own computers from spare parts. That's where my passion for technology was born, and it's what drove me to transform Mitchell and Associates into a modern tech consulting giant. After graduating summa cum laude with a computer science degree from UT Austin and completing my master's in software engineering at Stanford, I returned home in 2010 ready to modernize our family legacy. My parents, David and Linda Mitchell, were thrilled, or so I thought. The company was still running on outdated systems, losing clients to more agile competitors. I spent the next 14 years completely transforming Mitchell and Associates. I designed and built our flagship product, CloudSync Pro, an enterprise resource planning system that now serves over 200 companies nationwide. I grew our development team from 3 people to 45, established our cybersecurity division, and led the digital transformation that increased our annual revenue from $2 million to $50 million. Most importantly, I secured an $8 million contract with Meridian Corporation, a logistics giant that needed a complete overhaul of their supply chain management system. That contract wasn't just money, it was validation that we'd evolved from a small family business into a serious technology partner. But my parents had different plans. Last March, we gathered for our quarterly board meeting in the executive conference room on the 20th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Austin's skyline, and Grandpa Bob's original IBM computer sat in a display case as a reminder of our roots. My father David straightened his tie, his usual tell for big announcements. Mom Linda sat beside him, reviewing notes on her tablet. Jake, my brother who's 4 years younger, lounged in his chair scrolling through Instagram, barely paying attention. I expected to discuss our Q2 projections and the Meridian implementation timeline. Instead, Dad cleared his throat and began what felt like a prepared speech. "We've been discussing our leadership structure," Dad said, his voice carrying the formal tone he used for important announcements. "Your mother and I believe it's time to establish clear executive roles. Jake has completed his MBA from Wharton, and we think he's ready to take on the Chief Technology Officer position." The room fell silent except for the gentle hum of the air conditioning. My laptop screen dimmed to black as I stared at Dad, certain I'd misheard. Jake looked up from his phone with a smug grin, like he'd just won a prize he didn't deserve. "Dad, I don't understand," I said, my voice carefully controlled. "I've been leading our technology division for over a decade. I built CloudSync Pro from scratch. I manage our entire development team. I have the technical background, the client relationships." "Jake has an MBA," Dad interrupted, his tone firm. "He understands business strategy in ways that pure technical knowledge can't provide. You're brilliant with code, Sarah, but leadership requires a broader perspective." Broader perspective. The phrase hit me like a slap. I'd tripled our revenue, built systems that served hundreds of clients, and managed teams across multiple time zones. What broader perspective did Jake have beyond a business degree and zero hands-on experience? What has Jake actually built? I asked, leaning forward. What systems has he designed? What clients has he managed? That Meridian contract, I spent 2 years developing the relationship with their executives. I created the technical specifications for their entire platform. Jake finally spoke up, his voice dripping with condescension. Sarah, you're great at the technical stuff, but I can see the big picture. We need to scale operations, streamline processes, maybe outsource some development to reduce costs. Your artisan approach to coding doesn't fit a modern business model. Artisan approach. My hands clenched under the table. Every line of code I'd written was crafted for performance, security, and scalability. Our systems had 99.97% uptime, handled millions of transactions daily, and had never suffered a major security breach. That wasn't artisan work, that was engineering excellence. The Meridian system processes $2 billion in transactions annually, I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. It has to be perfect. One bug could cost them millions. You want to outsource that kind of critical development? We need to think strategically, Dad said, raising a hand to silence the growing tension. Jake's right about scaling. You'll continue as lead developer, Sarah, but under Jake's strategic direction. Lead developer. After 14 years of building this company's entire technical infrastructure, I was being demoted to a coding role under my brother's strategic direction. I looked at Mom, hoping for support, but she avoided eye contact, fingers busy adjusting her bracelet. It's what's best for long-term growth, Mom finally murmured, still not meeting my eyes. I sat back, my mind racing through every late night I'd spent debugging critical systems, every client meeting I'd led, every innovation I'd pioneered. The CloudSync Pro platform alone generated $30 million annually. Our cybersecurity division, which I'd built from nothing, protected dozens of companies from increasingly sophisticated threats. And now my parents thought Jake, whose biggest technical achievement was setting up his PlayStation, could provide strategic direction for operations he didn't understand. The meeting continued with Dad outlining Jake's transition plan. He'd start immediately, reviewing all current projects and making optimization recommendations. Translation: he'd second-guess every technical decision I'd made while having no basis for understanding why those decisions mattered. We're also looking at consolidating some of our services, Jake added, consulting notes on his phone. Do we really need separate teams for front-end development, back-end systems, and cybersecurity? Seems like there's overlap we could eliminate. I stared at him in disbelief. Front-end, back-end, and cybersecurity weren't overlapping functions. They were specialized disciplines requiring completely different skill sets. Consolidating them would be like asking a heart surgeon to also perform brain surgery and orthopedic procedures because they're all medical work. Those teams handle completely different technologies, I explained, trying to keep my voice educational rather than condescending. You can't just merge them because they all involve computers. Jake shrugged. That's the kind of siloed thinking that holds companies back. My MBA program emphasized cross-functional integration. We could train people to handle multiple roles, reduce headcount, improve efficiency. Cross-functional integration. He was talking about my highly specialized senior engineers like they were interchangeable factory workers. These were people with decades of experience, some with advanced degrees, who'd built systems that powered major corporations. The idea of training them to handle multiple roles showed such a fundamental misunderstanding of software development that I didn't know where to begin explaining. The Meridian contract specifically requires dedicated security specialists, I said. Their compliance standards mandate separate teams for development and security testing. We can't just consolidate those roles. Dad frowned, flipping through the contract folder. We'll need to discuss that with Meridian. Maybe explain our new efficiency model. My stomach dropped. Dad wanted to renegotiate our most important contract based on Jake's half-baked efficiency theories. Meridian had chosen us specifically because of our specialized expertise and proven security protocols. Suggesting we'd reorganize into generic, multi-purpose teams would make them question our professionalism. The meeting ended with Jake officially starting his CTO role the following Monday. I walked back to my office, the corner space I'd earned after building our development department, and stared out at the Austin skyline. Somewhere out there, our competitors were probably celebrating. They'd been trying to poach our clients for years, and now we were about to hand them opportunities on a silver platter. That weekend, I called my mentor, Dr. Patricia Chen, who'd guided me through graduate school and my early career. Over coffee at a quiet cafe near the university, I explained the situation. "They're making Jake CTO," I said, stirring my latte absently. "He has zero technical background but an MBA, so apparently that qualifies him to run technology operations." Patricia listened intently, her expression growing more concerned as I detailed Jake's consolidation plans and efficiency theories. As a former CTO at several major tech companies, she understood the implications immediately. "Sarah," she said finally, "this isn't just about family dynamics. What they're proposing could seriously damage the company. Your specialized teams, your security protocols, those aren't optional luxuries. They're fundamental to operating at enterprise scale." "I know," I said, feeling the weight of 14 years of careful construction about to be dismantled. "But they see me as just the technical person. Jake has the business credentials, so his opinion carries more weight." Patricia leaned forward. "You built a $50 million company. You created systems that handle billions in transactions. Those aren't technical achievements, they're business achievements. The fact that they require deep technical knowledge doesn't diminish their business value." Her words resonated, but I felt trapped. This was my family's company, built on my grandfather's legacy. Walking away felt like betrayal, but staying meant watching everything I'd built get systematically destroyed by someone who didn't understand it. "What would you do?" I asked. "I'd document everything," Patricia said without hesitation. "Your contributions, your systems, your client relationships. If they're determined to make changes, at least protect your work and your reputation." Monday morning arrived with Jake strutting into the office like he owned the place. He'd set up in the executive suite, right next to Dad's office, and immediately called an all-hands meeting for the development team. I watched from the back as Jake stood at the front of our main conference room, addressing the 45 engineers, designers, and security specialists I'd recruited and trained over the years. Many of them had followed me from other companies, drawn by challenging projects and the opportunity to work on cutting-edge systems. "I'm excited to bring fresh perspective to our technology operations," Jake began, clicking through slides that looked like generic MBA presentation templates. "We're going to focus on efficiency, scalability, and cost optimization." He outlined his consolidation plan, complete with buzzwords like synergy and streamlined workflows. I watched my team's faces change from polite attention to confused concern as Jake explained how front-end developers could easily learn cybersecurity and back-end engineers could handle user interface design. Marcus Rodriguez, our lead security architect, raised his hand. "What about compliance requirements? Financial services clients need certified security specialists, not generalists with basic security training." Jake waved dismissively. "We'll cross-train people. The fundamentals are the same, it's all computer work." "The fundamentals are the same." I cringed, watching Marcus's expression shift from confusion to alarm. Marcus held 3 security certifications, had prevented dozens of potential breaches, and specialized in protecting financial data worth billions. Suggesting his expertise was just computer work was like calling a neurosurgeon a body mechanic. After the meeting, I was approached by several team members expressing concerns. Amy Chen, our front-end lead, looked particularly worried. "Sarah, is he serious about the cross-training?" she asked quietly. "I've spent 8 years mastering React, Angular, and user experience design. Learning cybersecurity to his standards would take years, and I'd have to give up staying current with front-end technologies. I'm trying to work with him, I said, though the words felt hollow. Give it some time. But time only made things worse. Jake immediately began questioning every project, every budget allocation, every technical decision. He'd interrupt development meetings to suggest alternatives based on business school case studies rather than technical requirements. During a client presentation for a healthcare company, Jake suggested we could reduce security measures to speed up development. I had to intervene, explaining that healthcare data required specific compliance protocols that couldn't be shortened without legal consequences. The client looked concerned about our internal disagreements, and we barely maintained their contract. The breaking point came 3 weeks into Jake's tenure. Meridian Corporation scheduled their quarterly review meeting, a crucial check-in for our $8 million contract. The project was on schedule, performing beautifully, and their executives had been consistently pleased with our progress. Jake insisted on leading the presentation, despite having no involvement in the system's development. I watched in horror as he pitched his efficiency model to senior executives who'd specifically chosen us for our specialized approach. We're implementing cross-functional teams, Jake announced confidently. Instead of separate front-end, back-end, and security specialists, we're training our people to handle multiple roles. This will improve communication and reduce costs. Margaret Walsh, Meridian's Chief Information Officer, frowned. Our contract specifies dedicated security testing by certified specialists. Are you saying you're changing that structure? We're optimizing it, Jake replied, apparently oblivious to her concern. Our people will have broader skill sets, so one person can handle development and security review. It's more efficient. The room went quiet. I could see Margaret exchanging glances with her technical team. They'd hired us specifically because we had dedicated experts for each critical function. The idea of combining development and security review violated basic principles of enterprise security. Let me understand, said Dr. James Liu, their Chief Technology Officer. You want the same person who writes code to also test it for security vulnerabilities? Exactly, Jake said enthusiastically. Eliminates handoffs, speeds up development, reduces miscommunication. I wanted to disappear into my chair. Jake had just suggested eliminating the separation of duties that prevented conflicts of interest in security testing. It was like suggesting that restaurant health inspectors should also cook the food they're inspecting. Dr. Liu looked directly at me. Sarah, is this really the direction Mitchell & Associates is taking? I faced an impossible choice: publicly contradict my brother and embarrass my family, or stay silent and watch our most important contract crumble. I chose honesty. Dr. Liu, our current security protocols follow industry best practices precisely because they separate development and testing functions. It's not inefficient, it's necessary for maintaining the security standards your data requires. Jake's face reddened. Sarah, we've discussed this. The new model will work fine. No, I said firmly, it won't. And suggesting it makes us look either incompetent or reckless. The meeting ended awkwardly, with Meridian's team saying they needed to reassess their vendor relationships based on our proposed changes. As we packed up, Margaret Walsh pulled me aside. Sarah, we've worked together for 3 years. Your expertise is why we chose Mitchell & Associates. If the company is really changing its technical approach this dramatically, we'll need to explore other options. My heart sank. Meridian wasn't just a client, they were our flagship account, the proof that we could handle enterprise-level challenges. Losing them would devastate our reputation and financial stability. That evening, I sat in my apartment reviewing everything that had led to this moment. Jake's business school theories might sound impressive in a classroom, but they were catastrophically wrong for real-world software development. Worse, Dad and Mom seemed to believe his MBA gave him authority over technical decisions he didn't understand. I'd spent 14 years building Mitchell & Associates into a respected technology partner. My code ran critical systems for hundreds of companies. My security protocols protected billions in transactions. My team of specialists had prevented countless potential disasters through their expertise. And now my family thought Jake could manage all of that better because he could create PowerPoint presentations about efficiency. I called Patricia Chen, who listened patiently as I described the Meridian meeting disaster. "They're going to lose the contract," I said flatly. "Meridian can't afford to work with a vendor that doesn't understand basic security principles." "What are you going to do?" Patricia asked. I'd been wrestling with that question all evening. Staying meant watching Jake dismantle everything I'd built, potentially destroying client relationships and damaging our reputation. But leaving felt like abandoning the company Grandpa Bob had started and I'd worked so hard to grow. "I think I need to make a choice," I said slowly. "Either I try to work within their system and watch everything fall apart, or I protect what I've built by taking it somewhere else." "Your expertise, your client relationships, your reputation, those belong to you," Patricia said gently. "Your grandfather built the foundation, but you constructed the building. Don't let someone else tear it down just because they have the keys." The next morning, I requested a meeting with Dad and Jake. We gathered in Dad's office, the same space where I'd pitched the CloudSync Pro concept 8 years earlier. The walls were covered with awards and recognition certificates, many of them honoring achievements I'd led. "We need to discuss what happened with Meridian," I began, setting a folder of documents on Dad's desk. "Margaret Walsh called this morning. They're terminating our contract." Dad's face went pale. "Terminating? Why?" I looked at Jake, who was staring at his phone rather than engaging with the conversation. "Because Jake suggested eliminating the security protocols they specifically contracted for. He told them we'd have developers review their own code for vulnerabilities, which violates basic enterprise security standards." "I was proposing efficiency improvements," Jake said defensively, not looking up from his screen. "They overreacted." "They reacted appropriately," I said, my voice steady but firm. "You suggested something that would make their systems vulnerable to attack. No responsible CIO would accept that risk." Dad rubbed his temples. "Can we fix this? Call Margaret, explain that we'll maintain the security protocols." "I tried," I said. "She said they've lost confidence in our technical leadership. When a vendor suggests compromising security for efficiency, it raises questions about their fundamental understanding of enterprise requirements." Jake finally looked up, his expression irritated. "This is exactly the problem, Sarah. You're too rigid about these processes. Business requires flexibility." "Enterprise security isn't flexible," I shot back. "It's based on proven principles that prevent disasters. You can't innovate your way around the laws of physics, and you can't efficiency your way around security requirements." Dad leaned back in his chair, the weight of an $8 million loss settling on his shoulders. "What do we do now?" I'd prepared for this question, though I hoped I wouldn't need to answer it. "You have 3 options. First, you can continue with Jake's approach and hope other clients are more flexible about security standards. Second, you can reverse course, restore the technical protocols, and hope to rebuild credibility over time. Third, you can acknowledge that technical leadership requires technical expertise." "What does that mean?" Dad asked. "It means recognizing that an MBA doesn't qualify someone to make decisions about complex technical systems. It means understanding that the people who built these systems might know something about how they should be managed." Jake scoffed. "You're just upset because you didn't get the title you wanted." I turned to face him directly. "Jake, I've been managing technical operations for 14 years. I built the systems that generate 60% of this company's revenue. I recruited and trained most of our development team. I established the security protocols that protect our clients' data. This isn't about a title, it's about competence." "Enough," Dad said firmly. "We're not going to solve this by arguing. Sarah, what specifically are you proposing?" I'd hoped it wouldn't come to this, but Jake's dismissive attitude and the Meridian disaster had forced my hand. "I'm proposing that technical decisions be made by people with technical expertise. If you want Jake involved in operations, give him a business role where his MBA is relevant. but don't put him in charge of systems he doesn't understand." Dad was quiet for a long moment, considering the implications. Finally, he spoke. "Jake is staying as CTO. He's learning and he'll improve with experience. You're our lead developer, Sarah. That's an important role." Lead developer. After everything I'd built, everything I'd achieved, I was being offered the position of a senior employee under my unqualified brother's management. It was clear that no amount of competence, achievement, or expertise would overcome their decision to favor Jake's gender and MBA over my proven track record. "I see," I said quietly, standing up from my chair. "In that case, I need to give you something." I placed my resignation letter on Dad's desk, along with a detailed inventory of the systems I'd built, the client relationships I'd developed, and the intellectual property I'd created. This lists everything I've contributed to Mitchell & Associates over the past 14 years. Consider it a knowledge transfer document. Dad stared at the letter without opening it. "Sarah, don't be dramatic. We can work this out." "No, Dad, we can't. You've made it clear that you value Jake's MBA over my 14 years of building this company. I'm not going to stay and watch him destroy what I've created." I walked toward the door, then turned back. "For what it's worth, I hope I'm wrong about the consequences. But when your other enterprise clients start questioning your technical competence, remember that you chose this path." As I left Dad's office, I felt a strange mixture of terror and relief. I just walked away from everything I'd known, everything I'd built. But I'd also walked away from a situation where my expertise was dismissed and my contributions were undervalued. The news of my departure spread quickly through the company. By noon, I'd received calls and messages from most of my development team. Marcus Rodriguez was the first to call. "Sarah, is it true you're leaving?" His voice was tight with concern. "It's true," I confirmed. "I can't work under the new technical leadership structure." "What about the rest of us?" "Jake's already scheduled meetings to discuss role consolidation. I think he wants to eliminate half the security team and have the remaining people also do development work." My heart sank. Marcus had predicted exactly what I'd feared. Jake would continue pushing his efficiency theories despite the Meridian disaster. "Marcus, I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you this. Any company that values your security expertise will never ask you to split your focus with unrelated development work." "Are you starting your own company?" he asked quietly. The question caught me off guard. I hadn't thought beyond leaving Mitchell & Associates, but the idea sparked something. "I don't know yet. But if I do, I'll need good people." Over the next few days, I received similar calls from Amy Chen, David Park, our back-end architect, Lisa Thompson, our DevOps specialist, and several other key team members. They were all concerned about Jake's consolidation plans and the technical direction of the company. More importantly, I started hearing from clients. Word had spread quickly through Austin's tight-knit tech community that I'd left Mitchell & Associates. Companies that had worked with me directly began reaching out, some expressing concern about their ongoing projects, others asking about my future plans. The call that changed everything came from Rebecca Martinez, CTO of Quantum Dynamics, a Austin-based fintech startup that had been one of our earliest clients. "Sarah, I heard about your departure from Mitchell & Associates," Rebecca said. "I wanted to reach out because your team built our entire trading platform. It's been flawless for 3 years, handling millions in transactions daily." "Thank you, Rebecca. That project was one of my favorites. Complex algorithmic trading required some interesting security solutions." "That's actually why I'm calling. We're expanding rapidly, and we need someone to build our next-generation platform. We were planning to contract with Mitchell & Associates again, but honestly, you were the reason we felt confident in that choice." I paused, processing what she was suggesting. "Are you offering me a consulting contract?" "I'm offering you whatever arrangement would get your expertise. Consulting, partnership, full-time role, we're flexible. But after hearing about the changes at Mitchell & Associates, we're not comfortable proceeding with them." That conversation planted a seed. Over the next week, I received similar calls from 3 other former clients. They'd all worked directly with me on complex projects and were uncomfortable with the idea of Jake's new technical leadership managing their critical systems. Patricia Chen helped me think through the possibilities when we met for lunch the following weekend. "You have something valuable," she said. "Technical expertise, proven results, and client relationships built on trust. That's not tied to Mitchell & Associates, it's tied to you." "But starting a consulting firm is a huge risk," I said. "I'd be competing directly with my family's company." "You'd be offering something they can't," Patricia replied. "Proven technical leadership with a track record of enterprise-scale success. Jake might have an MBA, but he doesn't have 14 years of building systems that actually work." The idea was both terrifying and exhilarating. I'd spent my entire career within the safety of the family business, building on the foundation Grandpa Bob had established. Starting fresh meant risking everything on my own abilities. But I'd already proven those abilities. CloudSync Pro generated $30 million annually. My security protocols had prevented countless potential breaches. My development team had built systems that powered major corporations across multiple industries. Maybe it was time to stop building other people's dreams and start building my own. I spent the next month planning. I consulted with business lawyers about intellectual property issues, ensuring that everything I'd take to a new venture was legally mine. My client relationships, my personal expertise, my reputation, those belonged to me, not to Mitchell & Associates. I also discovered something troubling through industry contacts. Mitchell & Associates was struggling more than I'd realized. Meridian's contract termination had triggered reviews from other enterprise clients. 2 smaller companies had already switched to competitors, citing concerns about technical leadership changes. Jake's efficiency initiatives were creating exactly the problems I'd predicted. He'd merged the front-end and back-end teams, causing communication issues and slowing development. He'd reduced the security team from 8 specialists to 3 generalists, forcing them to cover areas outside their expertise. Most damaging, he'd attempted to renegotiate several client contracts to reduce unnecessary security protocols. While smaller companies might accept such changes to save money, enterprise clients were choosing to work with more established vendors rather than risk their data security. 3 months after leaving Mitchell & Associates, I officially launched Mitchell Technologies, a deliberate choice to honor Grandpa Bob's legacy while establishing my own identity. I'd decided against trying to avoid the family name. Instead, I wanted to show what the Mitchell name could represent when paired with actual technical expertise. My first client was Rebecca Martinez at Quantum Dynamics. The contract to build their next-generation trading platform was worth $2.3 million and gave me the foundation to hire my first employees. Marcus Rodriguez was my first recruit. He'd finally had enough of Jake's insistence that security specialists should also handle user interface design. Amy Chin followed, frustrated by being asked to learn back-end database management while keeping up with rapidly evolving front-end frameworks. Within 6 months, I'd hired 12 former Mitchell & Associates employees, all of whom had left because of Jake's consolidation initiatives. They didn't just bring their individual skills, they brought our team chemistry, our shared understanding of how to build enterprise-scale systems. The success was immediate and dramatic. Word spread through Austin's tech community that the team responsible for Mitchell & Associates' best work had regrouped under new leadership. Companies that had been waiting for their projects to resume normal progress began switching vendors. Meridian Corporation was among them. Dr. Liu called me directly 6 months after their contract termination. "Sarah, we've been struggling with the vendor we chose to replace Mitchell & Associates. Their work is adequate, but it lacks the sophisticated understanding of our requirements that your team always demonstrated." "I'm sorry to hear that, James. Enterprise systems require specialized expertise. It's not something you can improvise. We'd like to discuss bringing our project to Mitchell Technologies. We understand you've established your own firm with many of the same specialists who worked on our original system." The Meridian contract was worth $12 million, larger than the original deal because they wanted to expand the system to additional divisions. Landing at 6 months after starting my own company felt like vindication, but more than that, it felt like proof that technical expertise mattered more than business school credentials. The hardest part of my success was its impact on my family. Dad called 2 weeks after the Meridian news became public. "Sarah, we need to talk." His voice sounded tired, strained. "What's on your mind, Dad?" "You're destroying us. Half our development team has joined you, and now our biggest clients are switching vendors. You're using our family name to compete against us." I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "Dad, I'm using my own expertise to serve clients who value technical competence. The Mitchell name represents the standards Grandpa Bob established. I'm honoring those standards. By stealing our employees and clients? By providing them with the technical leadership they need. Jake's efficiency initiatives have created problems that enterprise clients won't tolerate. I didn't steal anyone. They chose to work with someone who understands their requirements." There was a long pause. Finally, Dad's voice became quieter, more vulnerable. "We're in trouble, Sarah. Revenue is down 40%. Jake's talking about more consolidation to cut costs, but every change seems to create new problems." "I warned you this would happen," I said gently. "Technical systems require technical leadership. You can't manage what you don't understand." "What would it take for you to come back?" he asked. "We could make you CTO, give Jake a different role." The offer I'd wanted 14 months ago was finally on the table, but now it felt hollow. "Dad, I've built something of my own now. My team, my clients, my reputation, they're not tied to Mitchell and Associates anymore. Why would I give that up to fix problems that didn't need to happen?" "Because it's your family's company," he said, his voice cracking slightly. "No, Dad. It's your company. You made that clear when you chose Jake over me. I've built my own family now, a team that respects expertise and values technical excellence." The conversation ended with an uncomfortable silence. I felt sad for Dad, but I wasn't willing to sacrifice my independence to solve problems that were the direct result of dismissing my expertise. 6 months later, Jake called me directly. His voice lacked the cocky confidence I remembered from our early confrontations. "Sarah, I think I made some mistakes," he said without preamble. "What kind of mistakes?" I asked, though I suspected I knew. "The efficiency initiatives. Consolidating teams, cross-training specialists. It seemed logical in theory, but in practice." He trailed off. "But in practice, you can't just combine specialized roles and expect the same level of expertise," I finished. "What happened?" "We had a security breach last week. A client's financial data was exposed because the person reviewing code security also wrote the code. He missed a vulnerability that Marcus Rodriguez would have caught immediately." My stomach tightened. A security breach was every technology company's nightmare, but it was especially devastating for a firm that handled financial data. "How bad?" "Bad. The client is suing us for negligence. Their insurance company is investigating whether our security protocols met industry standards. We could lose our professional liability coverage." The conversation continued for 20 minutes, with Jake describing a cascading series of problems caused by his efficiency initiatives. Cross-trained employees were making mistakes outside their expertise areas. Clients were questioning technical decisions that didn't meet enterprise standards. Several pending contracts had been canceled when prospective clients learned about the security breach. "I don't know how to fix this," Jake admitted finally. "Jake, I tried to explain these issues when you started implementing changes. Technical expertise isn't inefficient. It's necessary for preventing exactly the kind of problems you're describing." "I know that now. But knowing it doesn't help me solve it. Most of our good people have joined you, and the clients who haven't left yet are threatening to." I felt a mixture of sympathy and frustration. Jake was finally understanding the consequences of dismissing expertise, but that understanding came too late to prevent serious damage. "What are you asking me to do?" I said. "I don't know. Come back? Consult with us? Help us rebuild what I broke." The request was tempting in some ways. Mitchell and Associates was still Grandpa Bob's legacy, and part of me wanted to see it survive. But going back would mean abandoning the team I'd built, the clients who'd trusted me, and the independence I'd fought to establish. Jake, I can't fix this for you. The problems aren't technical, they're about leadership and decision-making. You'd need to completely restructure operations, hire back specialized talent, and rebuild client confidence. That would take years, assuming you could find people willing to return. So you won't help at all? I considered the question carefully. I'll give you some advice, but I won't come back or consult formally. First, stop trying to cross-train specialists, hire dedicated experts for each critical function. Second, be honest with clients about what went wrong and how you're fixing it. Third, understand that rebuilding reputation takes time and consistent competence. And if we can't do that? Then you consider whether Mitchell and Associates should continue as a technology company, or whether you should focus on areas where your business background is actually relevant. The suggestion was harsh but honest. Jake's MBA might qualify him to manage general business operations, but it didn't prepare him to lead technical teams building complex systems. 2 years after starting Mitchell Technologies, I stood in our new office space, a full floor of a downtown Austin tower, just 5 blocks from Mitchell and Associates building. Our team had grown to 38 people, all specialists in their fields, all committed to the technical excellence that enterprise clients required. We just signed our largest contract yet, a $15 million project to build a comprehensive supply chain management system for a Fortune 100 manufacturer. The client had chosen us specifically because of our track record with complex enterprise systems and our refusal to compromise security for efficiency. Marcus Rodriguez, now my chief security officer, knocked on my office door. "Sarah, there's someone here to see you." Mom walked in, looking older than I remembered but carrying herself with a dignity I hadn't seen before. We hadn't spoken since my departure, though I'd heard through industry contacts that she'd been taking a more active role in Mitchell and Associates operations. "Hi, Mom," I said, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. "This is unexpected." She sat down, folding her hands in her lap. "I should have come sooner. I should have said something sooner." Her voice was quiet but steady. "I came to apologize." I leaned back in my chair, studying her face. Mom had always been Dad's silent partner, supportive but never challenging his decisions. Seeing her here, speaking independently, felt surreal. "Apologize for what?" I asked, though I suspected I knew. "For not defending you. For letting your father and Jake dismiss your expertise. For sitting silent when I knew they were making a terrible mistake." She paused, her eyes meeting mine for the first time. "I grew up believing that men made the big decisions and women supported them. It took watching you succeed independently to realize how wrong that was." Her words carried weight I hadn't expected. "Mom, Let me finish," she said, raising a gentle hand. "Mitchell and Associates is failing, Sarah. The security breach was just the beginning. We've lost 60% of our clients, and the ones who remain are questioning every technical recommendation. Jake finally admitted he's in over his head, but the damage is done." I felt a complex mix of vindication and sadness. I'd predicted these problems, but taking satisfaction in being right felt hollow when it meant watching Grandpa Bob's legacy crumble. "What does Dad say about all this?" I asked. "Your father is struggling. He knows he made the wrong choice, but his pride won't let him admit it openly. He keeps talking about rebuilding, but we don't have the expertise or reputation to compete anymore." She paused, her voice becoming softer. "We don't have you." "Mom, I can't come back. I've built something here, something that values what I bring. My team, my clients, they trust me because I've proven myself, not because of my last name." "I know," she said quickly. "I'm not here to ask you to return. I'm here to tell you that I'm proud of what you've built. I'm proud that you had the courage to leave when we didn't value you properly." The unexpected praise hit me harder than any criticism ever had. For years I'd craved my family's recognition, their acknowledgement of my contributions. Now that it was finally offered, I realized I no longer needed it for my own validation. "Thank you," I said simply. "That means more than you know." We talked for another hour, carefully rebuilding a relationship that had been strained by business decisions and family dynamics. When she left, Mom hugged me, something she hadn't done since I was a child. "I hope someday we can be family again, separate from all the business complications," she said. "We already are," I replied. "We just had to learn how." 6 months later, I received news that Mitchell & Associates had filed for bankruptcy. The security breach litigation, combined with massive client defections and ongoing operational problems, had made the company financially unsustainable. Dad had tried to sell to a larger consulting firm, but the damaged reputation and depleted talent pool made it an unattractive acquisition. Jake called me the day the bankruptcy was announced. "It's over," he said simply. "We're shutting down next month." "I'm sorry, Jake. I know this isn't what anyone wanted." "I destroyed it," he said, his voice hollow. "Everything Grandpa Bob built, everything you grew it into, I destroyed it with my arrogance and ignorance." "You made mistakes," I said carefully, "but you weren't the only one making decisions. Dad chose to put you in a role you weren't prepared for. He chose me because I'm a man with an MBA. You know it, I know it. If you'd been a brother instead of a sister, none of this would have happened." His acknowledgement of the gender bias felt like a confession that was 2 years too late. "Maybe. But we can't change the past, Jake. What matters now is what you do next." "I don't know what that is. I've got an MBA but no real business experience. I've got CTO on my resume, but everyone in Austin knows I wasn't qualified for the role." I considered my words carefully. Jake was my brother, and despite everything that had happened, I didn't want to see him destroyed by his mistakes. "You could work in business operations for a technology company, someone else's technology company, where you're not making technical decisions. Your MBA is valuable, Jake, just not for leading engineering teams. Would you consider hiring me?" he asked quietly. The question surprised me. "Jake, I don't think that would be healthy for either of us. Too much history, too many complications. But I could introduce you to some companies that might value your business skills in appropriate roles." "I'd appreciate that," he said. "And Sarah? I'm sorry. For everything. You deserved better from all of us." 3 years after founding Mitchell Technologies, we'd grown to 85 employees and $25 million in annual revenue. We'd established specialized divisions for cybersecurity, enterprise software development, and cloud infrastructure management. Our client list included Fortune 500 companies across finance, healthcare, manufacturing, and logistics. Most importantly, we'd built a culture that valued expertise over credentials, results over politics, and technical excellence over efficiency shortcuts. When hiring, we looked for demonstrated competence rather than impressive degrees. When promoting, we considered leadership ability within specific technical domains rather than generic management skills. The approach worked. Our employee retention rate was 94%, our client satisfaction scores consistently topped industry benchmarks, and our security record remained flawless. We'd proven that technical leadership produced better technical results than business leadership attempting to manage technology. I stood in our main conference room, looking out at the Austin skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. Patricia Chen sat beside me, reviewing the quarterly reports I'd just presented to our board of advisors. "You've built something impressive," she said. "Not just financially, but culturally. This company represents what happens when expertise is valued appropriately." "It represents what Grandpa Bob started," I replied. "He understood that technology was the future, but he built on foundation of respect for knowledge and competence. I just brought that philosophy into the modern era." "And your family?" I smiled, thinking about my evolving relationships with each of them. "Mom and I have lunch once a month now. We talk about life, not business. She's started volunteering with organizations that support women in STEM careers." "What about your father?" "Dad's still adjusting. He's working as a financial consultant now, something that actually uses his business background appropriately. We don't talk often, but when we do, it's respectful. He knows I was right about the technical leadership issues. And Jake? Jake's doing well, actually. I introduced him to a software company that needed someone to manage client relationships and business development. He's good at that work because it uses his people's skills and business training without requiring technical decision-making. Patricia nodded approvingly. It sounds like everyone found roles that match their actual abilities. That's what should have happened from the beginning, I said. But sometimes you have to break things completely before you can rebuild them properly. As I prepared to leave the office that evening, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. 3 years ago, I'd been a talented but undervalued technical lead, dismissed in favor of someone less qualified but more politically favorable. Today, I ran a thriving technology company built on principles of expertise, excellence, and respect. The transformation hadn't been easy. Walking away from the family business meant sacrificing security and challenging deeply held assumptions about loyalty and hierarchy. Building something new required courage, persistence, and faith in my own abilities. But the results spoke for themselves. Mitchell Technologies had become what Mitchell & Associates could have been, a company where technical expertise was valued, where specialists were respected for their knowledge, where excellence trumped efficiency. I'd learned that sometimes proving your worth requires more than just working harder or achieving more. Sometimes it requires having the courage to walk away from situations that don't value you, even when those situations feel safe or familiar. My grandfather had built Mitchell & Associates because he believed in the future of technology. I'd built Mitchell Technologies because I believed in the value of expertise. Both companies represented the Mitchell family legacy, but only one honored what that legacy was supposed to mean. As I locked my office and headed home, I felt the satisfaction that comes from building something meaningful on your own terms. I'd started as Sarah Mitchell, the overlooked daughter trying to prove herself worthy of recognition. I'd become Sarah Mitchell, the technology leader who'd proven that expertise matters more than politics, that competence trumps credentials, and that sometimes the best way to honor a legacy is to build a better version of it yourself. The Austin skyline glittered in the evening light, full of possibilities for tomorrow. I'd claimed my place in it not by demanding recognition, but by demonstrating value too clear to ignore. And that, I realized, was the most important lesson of all. Your worth isn't determined by other people's willingness to see it. It's proven by your courage to show it, regardless of whether anyone else is watching. If you've ever been passed over for someone less qualified, if you've ever had your expertise dismissed because of bias or politics, if you've ever had to choose between comfort and respect, I hope my story encourages you to choose respect. The path isn't easy, but it leads to something better than recognition. It leads to the unshakable knowledge that you built something meaningful on your own terms. Know your worth. Demand it. And if necessary, prove it by building something better than what you left behind.